The Florida Panthers banner went up on opening night, but since then, injuries have hit the team. Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers is here to talk about that and the future for the Panthers. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's been an eventful week in Florida. Thankfully, Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers is safe and sound. The Florida Panthers got through the hurricane, but dealing with a lot of injuries. But let's start with the good news. The banner raising ceremony took place at the season opener, and it was a pretty special moment.
Very special for the Florida Panthers getting their first championship in franchise history. And the fact that for the Panthers, their focus was still to win that game on the night, knowing that it was an opponent coming in that they've beaten twice in a row in the Boston Bruins. And the banner raising ceremony didn't last long. They weren't going to be calling guys up one by one to get them on the ice. Just get the cup, raise the banner, take one picture, and then it was all back to playing Florida Panthers hockey. And that's really what it just goes to, once again, show the maturity in this group and the leadership that is in South Florida for the Panthers, and just still wanting more in their mission to get another Stanley Cup championship. Gil?
Was there one moment in that ceremony that just stood out to you?
I mean, it was just I think it was actually before the ceremony, because a few hours before the game, I got there maybe around like 2.5 hours before puck drop. And then they were replaying Game 7 on the Jumbotron in South Florida. And then the crowd cheering when Sam Reinhart scored the game winner, and then replaying again and then cheering all over again for that moment of June 24th, 2024. So that was really just reliving the moment in the arena and then topping it all off with the raising of the banner.
They get a big win over Boston, as you mentioned, and then the injuries start to pile up. Update us on the injuries and the latest, prognosis for some of these guys.
Yeah, so the injuries really started in the first preseason game for the Florida Panthers on that doubleheader against the Nashville Predators, where Tomas Nosek goes down after getting tripped, and then Maurice says that he's not close to skating again, but with that, and along with Aleksander Barkov's injury, they transitioned Tomas Nosek from IR to LTIR. So the first game that he'd be eligible to return would be October 28th at home against the Buffalo Sabres. But then in that second game of the season, Panthers really made a push in the final 40 minutes against the Ottawa Senators after struggling in the first 20, giving up odd man rushes. And then on the empty net goal by Timmy Stützle, Aleksander Barkov slid feet first into the boards. But we had some good news for the Panthers there, with Kyle Bukauskas reporting that he was seen walking out of the arena under his own power. And then the very next day, David Pragnotta of the fourth period reporting that it looks to be a 1 to 2 week injury. Paul Maurice also spoke about how there is a chance for Sasha Barkov to be back in the Florida Panthers lineup when the Florida Panthers do go on the road to Finland for the Global Series. Because if he were to go on LTIR right now, he would actually miss the very first game of that Global Series, the back-to-back against the Dallas Stars in his home town of Tampere, Finland. So also with the salary cap gymnastics, they were able to call up Patrick Giles for his NHL debut that happened on Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres. So there's a little bit of the gymnastics there for not only the cap, but also navigating what their top special teams is going to look like, because on opening night, after the Boston Bruins cleared the puck, hit Adam Boqvist in the face, only had to miss one game, that game against the Senators, but he's back into the mix. The Panthers had to roll 11 F7D on Saturday. Matthew Tkachuk missed one game with an illness, and the Panthers have a back-to-back. So a little bit of the navigating with the injuries, as if you were to look at this Panthers lineup on Saturday, more than 50% of the lineup was not on the roster for when the Panthers played Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. So, along with the turnover and along with the injuries to start the season, it's early adversity for the Panthers, but it's also a great challenge for them as they navigate through everything.
Now, with all these injuries, it's obviously affected the power play. Talk to me about that, and how concerned are you, or is it just, the injuries and it's too early to get too worried?
Too early to get worried, but thankfully their one power play goal that happened on Saturday from Sam Reinhart to Sam Bennett, which Sam Bennett in a contract year has 3 goals so far throughout the season. So good for him that he is performing well in a contract year. Also has a little bit of a foundation going on called Benny's Buddies that he's going to donate money for animal shelters in South Florida for every goal that he scores. So also great incentive off the ice for Sam Bennett. But the Panthers, this was always going to be a thing to navigate coming into this season with getting a new power play quarterback with Brandon Montour walking and taking a bigger payday for him to go to the Seattle Kraken in the offseason. But the thing with Adam Boquist getting him in the right-handed shot, someone who maybe wasn't utilized to the best of his abilities when he was in Chicago and Columbus, and also the mixing and matching. This is something that's going to be that is going to be a little bit of an experiment to start the season. Also, with the rotating of the third pair of putting Dmitry Kulikov there and then putting him up to the second pair, also putting Nate Schmidt into the mix where after him not playing opening night. Uvis Balinskis, who made the team last year, gets another chance this year after getting an extension as well. So that's also a little bit of the mix-up that's really going on the defensive end of the ice for the Panthers.
How concerned are you about the team defense? I mean, yes, it's only been 3 games, but they are giving up more goals than expected.
Yeah, not too concerned at the moment for them. I mean, it was odd man rushes galore again in the first 20 minutes against the Ottawa Senators, but then you see 3 straight periods going from one game to the next against the Buffalo Sabres. But the worry for the Panthers was really for their ability to get through the zone for them against the Buffalo Sabres and getting them deep and a lot of one and dones for them. Obviously, there's been a few miscommunications there for like stretch passes when you're looking at the speed of the young Buffalo Sabres team that they just faced a few days ago with guys like Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, who are. There's a lot there. They also faced a desperate team who was still seeking their first win versus a Panthers team who, you're putting a backup goaltender in there, and also 2 of your best guys are out. So it was for the Panthers there, just trying to get through, trying to weather storm there for the Panthers. And really, it was not the best performance for Spencer Knight, admittedly so in that first game, as he was giving up a lot of chances from distance, mishandling the pucks, giving up turnovers to create more of that offensive zone time for the Sabres in their Saturday game. But really, it's going to be step by step, game by game for the Panthers going forward, as they still tried to figure out everything outside of that top pair of Aaron Ekblad and Gustav Forsling.
So what do they need to do to successfully defend the Cup? It's a long season, there's still 79 games left, but what's your biggest concern at this early point in the season?
It's not. I don't know if the concern is the right word for this. It's just really about sticking to what the systems that have put them to succeed throughout their time in winning the Stanley Cup, and just the odd man rushes against, being tight in your own, and that first pass out for them, and just getting in for them. But we've seen some also impressive performances, even though they haven't resulted in goals on the PK. Eetu Luostarinen has proved to be extremely valuable. Anton Lundell, he's the center who's upgraded to the first line every time there's an injury to either Barkov or Bennett. So he's that Swiss Army knife for the Panthers, who can go up and down the lineup for them. And also they have a very promising youngster in Mackie Samoskevich, who missed the majority of camp with injuries for them, and also was put in the lineup towards the last week of the preseason. So he hasn't really gotten a lot of game action for him. And in the first week, he loses his line mate due to him going up in the lineup in Anton Lundell. So a little bit of learning to play with new players as things go on with this team. But Mackie Samoskevich has also been incredible in his ability to get to speed, fake the stutter steps, and then create a lane to shoot. So even if it hasn't resulted in anything, so it's been some impressive. There's have been some impressive individual performances on. Even if they don't have one great shift, they come back the next one, and you see a little bit of maybe what they learned from the previous shifts.
All right, Armando, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they can find you on social media?
They can follow me on social media on X and Instagram at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on either one on at FLO_FLA Panthers. And yeah, the show is anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, as we are continuing to try to grow the sport of hockey in South Florida, as we just saw a Stanley Cup championship banner, and we are hoping for more to come as the Panthers have definitely put their stamp in not only in the hockey world, but in South Florida sports.
All right, Armando, thanks so much.
Absolutely, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. October, my favorite month in the sports calendar. You've got the baseball playoffs, college and pro football. Hockey is back, hockey fans. So check out all the latest odds for your favorite team on FanDuel. And again, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.